rip off your arms and shove them up your butt.
Thor Love and Thunder is out, and boy was it a fun ride. Jam-packed with Guns N' Roses songs, funny bits, a rekindling love relationship, and an epic battle to tie the room together. It made us laugh out loud, it made us tear up, it kept us on the edge of our seats. Heavy spoilers ahead, so please, for the love of God of Thunder, you have been warned. Every Marvel movie is absolutely peanut butter and jam-packed with Easter eggs and references, and Thor Love and Thunder is no different. Thor Love and Thunder took everything that worked with Ragnarok and dials it up to 11, and we believe it handles continuity more effectively than previous installments. They brought back Natalie Portman's Jane Foster as the mighty Thor in an arc lifted directly from Jason Aaron's comic book run. But this time, Jane Foster is no damsel in distress. She is now transformed into a hero in her own right, bringing a rainbow of joy in the MCU and leaving Thor Odinson bewildered as old feelings are reignited. Thor Love and Thunder brings a classic comic book adventure to life, and it's filled to the brim with Easter eggs and references. Let's take a deep dive and take a look at 25 things you might have missed in Thor Love and Thunder. I'm Joey C. Let's go!
Is he asleep?
No. I'm pretty sure he's dead.
Christian Bale plays a terrifying take of Gore the God Butcher, and he serves as Thor Love and Thunder's main villain. He is a tortured soul who resents the fact that the gods did not intervene to save the life of his daughter. Love and Thunder adapts Gore's origin story from Jason Aaron's Thor God of Thunder #6 comic book. Although he narrows the focus down solely to the relationship between Gore and his dying daughter, it's a pretty powerful emotional introduction to the movie, ensuring the viewers can fully understand the main villain's motivations for his actions. Speaking of Gore the God Butcher, after his god rejects him, he stumbles upon the Necro Sword, which is an ancient sword originating from the dawn of time that has the power to slay gods. This is actually Gore's traditional weapon in the comics, where he has ultimately been tied to Null, the god of symbiotes. Null created All Black, the Necro Sword, as a weapon that has the ability to slay gods. Interestingly, nothing about Thor Love and Thunder's Necro Swords contradicts the comic book portrayal. Taika Waititi gives New Zealand actor Jonathan Bra a cameo as Rapu, the god whose dismissive attitude towards his worshippers prompts Gore to take up the Necro Sword and slay him. Slay him? I barely know him. Which ignites the chain of events for the movie. Bra worked with Waititi before on What We Do in the Shadows, making this quite an appropriate cameo. It's also important to note that the god Rapu is an original character that was created specifically for Thor Love and Thunder with no basis in the comics. The beautiful Natalie Portman isn't the only previously established Marvel Cinematic Universe character that returns in Thor Love and Thunder. The Guardians of the Galaxy return, but of course you didn't miss that one. More surprisingly though, secondary characters from the first two Thor movies appear in the movie as well. Kat Dennings' Darcy Lewis and Stellan Skarsgård's Eric Selvig are two of the only people Jane Foster has told about her cancer. Spoiler. While Jamie Alexandra's Lady Sif is brought back as well. The most unexpected cameo would have to go to Idris Elba, who shows up at the end when Jane finds herself at the gates of Valhalla.
More on that later. And then the ether stuck itself inside her, and she became...
Bet you didn't think we'd get scientific in this video. Well, we aren't, because I don't even know what this Einstein-Rosen bridge that Jane Foster talks about is. Regardless, Thor Love and Thunder presents Jane Foster as one of Earth's most celebrated scientists. Jane can't help but give a lecture on the wonderfully confusing Einstein-Rosen bridges theory when she sees another cancer patient reading her own book on the subject. Honestly, Google it, because good God, I'm just a content creator. I don't have much brain power. The Bifrost is the Einstein-Rosen bridge, explaining why Jane has such a good understanding of wormholes. Stormbreaker's power to summon the Bifrost becomes an essential part of the plot, meaning this is a surprisingly significant Easter egg. Now you're probably asking yourself if I understand all this, and to you I would say, not even in the slightest. If you paid even a little bit of attention, you would know that Thor Love and Thunder heads back to New Asgard, situated in the town of Tunsberg. This real-life place is generally regarded as the oldest town in Norway, and fictionally, its history has been tied to the Asgardians in the MCU. A flashback in Thor reveals that Odin led the Asgardians to war against the Frost Giants in Tunsberg in around 1000 AD, and the Red Skull discovered a cult of Odin worshippers, keeping the Tesseract hidden there in Captain America, the First Avenger. Thor Love and Thunder seems to confirm a popular fan theory that Odin died near Tunsberg in Thor Ragnarok. Speaking of New Asgard, it was rather funny and amusing to see New Asgard becoming a major tourist attraction. And side note, Miss Marvel Episodes 1 Avenger Con includes details of tours around Tunsberg. It's wild to see an ice cream store call itself Infinity Cones, because the name of the store sounds like it says You get it. Y'all don't have to explain it to you. Humans have always tended to deal with tragedy with humor, and clearly that trait is shared by Asgardians. While filming Thor Ragnarok, the director, Taika Waititi, famously produced a number of shorts where Thor Odinson lived with a roommate who was named Daryl. These aren't considered canon, and they're deliberately kept out of the MCU timeline on Disney+. But, surprisingly, Daryl, Thor's old roommate, reprises his role in a blink-and-you'll-miss-it moment where he plays a wonderful tour guide. Easter eggs that involve actors are among my favorite. Taika Waititi revisits a trick from Thor Ragnarok, with a group of actors putting on a show that sums up the last film's plot. Matt Damon and Sam Neill return among the actors, reprising their roles as Loki, Thor, and Odin. This time, they're joined by Melissa McCarthy in the role of Hela. It's easy to miss, but Ben Falcone, McCarthy's real-life husband and often director and co-star, appears during the curtain call. One of the funniest bits in Thor Love and Thunder were the screaming goats. Let me explain a bit more. Thor Love and Thunder sees Odinson gifted 2 pet goats. In Norse mythology, Thor's chariot is pulled by Teeth Snarler and Teeth Grinder. Marvel adapted the idea in 1976, introducing Thor's goats, Tooth Gnasher and Tooth Grinder.
No, give me that. You have the little one.
Let's dive a bit deeper into some of the victims of Gore the God Butcher, because there's a few juicy deets in there. Thor Love and Thunder lifts an image straight from the comics when it presents Gore the God Butcher victim Thalagar. The scene is brought to life straight from Thor God of Thunder number 3 by Jason Aaron, and it shows the tragic fate of Thalagar. The panel is practically brought to life on the big screen, with Korg's presence as the only alteration. In the comics, Thalagar was presented as the patron god of the galactic frontier who apparently wrestled black holes for fun, which just sounds so badass. We love an awkward love story. The awkward reunion between Jane Foster and Thor sees them disagreeing over how long they've been split up. Jane guesses 3 or 4 years, but Thor has a much more precise count. 8 years, 7 months, 6 days, give or take. There's a reason for this disagreement. Jane was among the people snapped out of existence in Avengers Infinity War, meaning she lost 5 years before she was restored. It's also important in confirming Brandon T. Snyder's novel, The Cosmic Quest Volume 2 Aftermath, shouldn't be considered MCU canon, because according to that book, Jane survived the snap. There were a good amount of flashbacks in Thor Love and Thunder that really tells a lot of the story. One flashback establishes that Thor has S.H.I.E.L.D. boss Nick Flippin' Fury on speed dial during his time on Earth. Also, side note, Thor has Nick Fury's name spelled wrong. He has it spelled as Furry. Furries, man, they're scary. Love and Thunder features a major subplot involving Asgardian children kidnapped by Gore the God Butcher. The director actually put the real-life children of some of the stars of the movie in the movie. We got a list of them just for you, my friends. Chris Hemsworth's own son, Tristan, as young Thor, with his twin Sasha playing one of the Asgardians kidnapped by Gore. Natalie Portman's children are also among the kidnapped Asgardians. The director's children also appear in those scenes as well. Even Christian Bale's children join the cast. Werewolves are slowly becoming part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and Thor Love and Thunder subtly features the first of them, a child who reveals he's a Lycan, as werewolves are lycanthropes. There's also a mid-Asian, presumably a nod to a race with the power to turn things into gold. Oddly enough, there's never been a race known as the mid-Asian in the comics, but they do exist in Doctor Who. In a rather small detail that's easy to miss, we see Odin's ravens are name dropped. These are nods to Odin's ravens, Munin and Hugin, who've been seen in the previous Thor films. In the comics, the ravens allow Odin to observe events across the universe. Comic book tie-ins are really far out, and honestly, there should be more of them, considering this is a movie about a comic book character. Thor wants to create a God Squad, a dream team of gods to take on the villainous Gorr the God Butcher. And while he imagines this team, he name drops some interesting key names from the comics. Let's go through a few, shall we? Zeus, played by Russell Crowe, after whom he styled himself, but also proves to be a great disappointment. Never meet your heroes, kids. Zeus' son, Hercules, who makes his official MCU debut in Thor Love and Thunder's post-credit scene. Quetzalcoatl, good lord, that's a name, the feathered serpent and the sky god in the Aztec pantheon, who has teamed with Thor in the comics to battle cosmic enemies. Let's move on to something a little bit more chill. Speaking of the gods, Thor heads to Omnipotent City. That's a mouthful. Where all the greatest of gods gather in a so-called Council of the Godheads. The Council of the Godheads has appeared many times in the comics, seen in Thor God of Thunder #3, the same issue that featured Falagar's death. Thor hopes the Council of the Godheads will convene his God Squad, an approach they have taken on several occasions in the comics. Few of the gods in Omnipotent City, good God, how many more times can I say that, get speaking roles. Although the credits reference Artemis and Minerva, members of the Greek/Roman pantheon in mythology and in the MCU. One god with dialogue is Dionysus. He's helping his father Zeus organize the next orgy. You're probably asking yourself, why they're organizing an orgy. It's a long story, we don't have time. In one of the best scenes in the movie, Zeus flicks off Thor's clothes and several female gods faint upon the sight, and all we're left with is thick boy Thor himself standing there naked. And all I could say is Captain America better step down from his thick throne. Odin's back is decorated with tattoos in honor of Loki. It's nice to see a tribute of Loki, who died in Avengers Infinity War, but whose MCU role is far from over, given there are some variants in the multiverse. Continuing on the Omnipotent City train, Thor, Valkyrie, and Jane all escape the city by blasting out on the Bifrost. As they do so, they pass two Celestials, who seem to be standing guard around the city. It's very possible Thor Love and Thunder is treating Celestials as simply another type of space god, thus subtly reconning Eternals, which suggests they were indeed the source of all life. If you thought we weren't going to go any deeper in Marvel lore, you'd be wrong. Go get your shovels, kids. The final battle between Thor and Gorr the God Butcher takes place at the very center of the universe, in a shrine dedicated to eternity. The shrine features statues dedicated to some of Marvel's most powerful cosmic beings, including the Watcher from Marvel's What If, and the Living Tribunal. The Living Tribunal actually appeared in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness in a blink and you'll miss it moment, in which Stephen Strange and America Chavez blasted past him as they ricocheted around the universe. But this isn't 25 Things You Missed in Multiverse of Madness. This is 25 Things You Missed in Thor Love and Thunder, baby. Who is Marvel's ultimate cosmic avatar, you ask? Well, Gorr's goal is to use the Bifrost to reach eternity, the embodiment of all that is. The design of eternity in Thor Love and Thunder is adapted heavily from the comics, although in truth it's a little less spectacular. The MCU's eternity was previously teased in Guardians of the Galaxy, where he was featured on a mural dedicated to the Infinity Stones alongside other cosmic avatars, notably Death and Infinity. Alright, back to an easy one here. Thor Love and Thunder reveals the effects of Jane's chemotherapy are being reversed every time she uses the power of Mjolnir. It rightly senses she is needed, coming to her side even when she's in the hospital. This scene pays homage to Mighty Thor number 704 by Jason Aaron, in which events play out in roughly the same way. In the comics, Jane sensed Asgard was being destroyed by the Mangog, a being who hates the gods, which is very similar to Gorr. And finally, let's dive a little bit deeper into the final post-credit scene. The scene reveals Jane Foster has been found worthy to enter Valhalla, the Norse afterlife. This idea is lifted straight from the mighty Thor number 706, in which Jane died and found herself at the gates of Valhalla. In the comics, she was saved from death by Odin's magic, but there's nobody to save Jane in the MCU. For all that's the case though, this probably isn't the end of the road for Jane Foster. Moon Knight has already confirmed it's possible to come back from afterlife dimensions in the MCU. Thor Love and Thunder surely hasn't written Jane Foster out for good.